welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're really diving into something that's got me thinking. It's the habits, the frugal habits of these finance giants, right? These are the people who are at the very top. We're talking like Warren Buffett, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, these heavy hitters, right?
These are the big ones.
And it's fascinating to me because so often we associate, I think, opulence with wealth, right? Like, oh, you made it, you're going to go out and just spend a ton of money. But all of these individuals are surprisingly frugal in how they approach building wealth.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It does go against what we see popularly, right? I mean, I think about even just like rappers or athletes.
Right.
Their first thought is, I'm going to go buy this. I'm going to go buy that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is interesting.
It's like they've figured something out that most people haven't, right? Like, what is this secret that they know? And I think a great example is Buffett, right? This is a guy who's worth billions, and he still lives in the same house he bought back in 1958 for $31,500.
Wow.
I mean, think about that for a second, right?
Yeah.
That's wild. And it begs the question, what do these titans know about money that the rest of us maybe haven't quite grasped yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that's what's going to be fun about this deep dive. You know, we're going to be going through, looking at articles, profiling these different financial titans, seeing how they did it. And again, it's not about penny pinching here, but it's really about these like mindset shifts and long-term strategies that have allowed them to not just, build wealth, but keep it and grow it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, a good place to start with all of this is really this idea of mindset. Because one thing that was recurring when I was reading through these articles is that, all of them really emphasized the internal game of wealth building.
Absolutely. Tony Robbins, who we mentioned earlier, obviously a master in personal development. And, he has that very famous saying, it's not knowing what to do, it's doing what you know.
Right.
And this applies directly to money management, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's about being intentional, making conscious choices rather than reacting, I would say, emotionally to every situation.
Yeah, it's like, if you were to think about it like driving, it's the difference between getting in your car and just kind of driving around aimlessly versus getting in your car with a destination in mind,
Having a map,
Right, exactly. And that really resonated with me because, let's be honest, I think we've all been there where we feel overwhelmed by financial decisions.
All the time. It's like, where do I even begin?
Exactly. So
that's where those mindsets, those frameworks really provide clarity. Instead of getting bogged down in the how-tos of every single financial decision, you start by defining your why, right? Like, what are your overarching financial goals?
Yeah, what's the big picture here?
Exactly. And that's what's empowering because it gives you a roadmap.
It gives you that sense of direction, right?
Yeah.
Instead of getting lost in the weeds of every little financial decision.
Exactly.
So we're not just talking about saving a few bucks here and there, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about habits that actually multiply your wealth over time.
Yeah.
It's like playing chess, thinking several moves ahead.
That's a great way to put it. It's that long game, right? And it's interesting, Warren Buffett, he's a huge advocate, and he really stresses this idea of investing in what you know.
Oh, absolutely.
He truly believes that when you have a deep understanding of an industry or company, you inherently reduce your risk.
So it's not about like chasing the latest trends,
right?
Or listening to your uncle at Thanksgiving dinner about some stock tip. Right?
Exactly. It's about saying, hey, what do I already know? Right? Like, what do I understand?
Leverage your existing knowledge.
Yes. Right. And I think a good way to think about that is your career, your hobbies, your interests. What are things you spend time on? Those are all things that you're already building a knowledge base in.
That's such a practical way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's like instead of trying to become an expert in everything, you focus on where you're already ahead of the curve.
And you can use that to your advantage. And it's not just about picking stocks, right?
Right. Makes you realize we all have some hidden investment knowledge just by living our lives.
Right. And, Grant Cardone, he has this really interesting concept called forced frugality.
Okay, break that down for me. Forced frugality. That sounds a little intense.
It's really not when you really think about it. Basically what he's saying is we want to take the emotion out of budgeting, right?
Yeah.
We want to take the emotion out of saving. So how do we do that? Well, we automate everything. We set up these systems, whether it's automatic transfers to your savings account or scheduling your bills to be paid in advance. And he's a huge advocate for that.
So it becomes effortless in a way. Like you're not even tempted to spend that money because it's already
It's gone, yeah.
spoken for, right?
Exactly. And what's interesting is that it plays on human psychology. Because, we're more likely to stick to something if we don't have to actively think about it every day.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, it's packing your lunch the night before when you're, kind of groggy and in routine.
Right.
Versus trying to make a healthy choice in the heat of the moment when you're starving at work at noon.
Right.
Right? You got to kind of set yourself up for success in a way.
I think that's a great way to put it, yeah. You got to set yourself up, because if not, you're going to fail. We all do.
Exactly. And that kind of ties into this bigger picture that I think is another common thread, which is this idea of playing the long game, right? We talked about that a little bit with investing, but it seems like it permeates all these different areas. Like Buffett famously said, right, that the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient.
Oh, yeah. He's a patient guy. And it's interesting because that quote, I always think about it in the context of, it's not just investing. It really is about life.
Yeah.
You think about building a business or even developing a skill or even relationships,
Absolutely. It takes time. It's that delayed gratification piece.
Yeah. And, that's something Tony Robbins talks a lot about, avoiding that comparison trap.
Oh, keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes, keeping up with the Joneses. Exactly.
It's so easy to get caught in that cycle, especially these days with social media.
Oh, it's never been easier. Really.
Right. Feeling like you need the newest car, the fanciest this, the most expensive that.
And that's a recipe for disaster, because you're constantly chasing this external validation instead of really thinking what truly matters to me.
Absolutely.
And that's what Tony Robbins emphasizes, Define success on your own terms. Don't let it be dictated by society, by your neighbors. Align your spending with your values, your aspirations.
It's about tuning out that noise.
Yeah.
Right. And focusing on what actually brings you joy and fulfillment. And, this whole focus on understanding future trends, it makes me think about another financial titan, even though she wasn't on our initial list to discuss today, and that's Cathie Wood.
Cathie Wood, the ARK Invest founder. Yeah.
She really embodies a lot of these principles.
She's very future-focused, for sure.
Exactly. Like, her whole investment strategy is about identifying those future trends, those companies that maybe aren't on everyone's radar yet.
That's a great point. I mean, talk about playing the long game. That's her.
And she lives by these principles too. Like Buffett, she believes in living below your means, even with that level of success.
Which, again, reinforces this point that it's not about deprivation, right? It's about being intentional, making choices that truly align with your values, not just, your bank account.
And just like Buffett, she's big on research. Wood always emphasizes investing in your knowledge, whether that's about a specific company or maybe just understanding the market as a whole.
And that's something that anyone can do. It doesn't matter how much money you have, investing in your education, expanding your skill set. That's frugal living in a way, because it's an investment in your future earning potential.
And just like Cardone, she prioritizes saving and investing for the long term, making your money work for you.
It all comes back to that long game, doesn't it?
Right.
They're not thinking about tomorrow. They're thinking 10, 20 years down the line.
It's like they're playing a different game entirely.
A different game, yeah.
It's like they're playing 4D chess while the rest of us are, like, struggling with checkers.
Right. It is a totally different level. But here's the thing. It's not just about, stacks of cash, right? It's about living a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to this idea of contentment.
Yeah.
Buffett talks about it. Cardone talks about it.
Right. Finding that joy in the simple things like we talked about, prioritizing quality over quantity, experiences over material possessions. And that's not just a financial strategy. It's a life strategy at that point, right?
It really is. And I think that contributes so much to lasting fulfillment.
Yeah.
More so than, what's in your bank account, frankly.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because sometimes I think frugality gets a bad rap.
Oh, yeah.
People associate it with, like, deprivation.
Being cheap, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not what we're talking about here.
Not at all.
It's about realizing you have the power. You choose what you value, and then you align your spending with those values. It's that simple.
It's about being mindful, intentional, making choices that serve you, not just, like, your impulses or, what society tells you to do.
Yes, 100%. It's about breaking free from that mold,
So if we were to try to distill all of this down,
Yeah.
if there's, like, one core message,
Yeah, I like
what would it be? What's the one actionable takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway here, and it kind of sums up everything we've been saying, is that frugality, it's not about limitation. It's actually about liberation.
Ooh, I like that. Frugality is liberation.
Yeah, because you're freeing yourself. You're freeing yourself from, this consumerism, from the pressure to keep up, from even the fear of financial scarcity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's about taking control of your finances so that your money works for you.
Yes, exactly. Instead of the other way around, which happens to so many of us.
Right, which is so easy to fall into, right?
Yes.
But it's so empowering to kind of flip that script. And the amazing thing is it doesn't require like these massive, drastic life changes, right?
No.
It's really about those small, sustainable shifts.
Small changes, big impact. I love that.
In mindset, in habits that over time really do add up to make this profound difference.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here, I want to leave our listeners with this. What's one small change you can make today?
Ooh, I like it.
Based on everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
What's one habit, one mindset shift, one tiny tweak to your spending that could maybe set you on that path to greater financial freedom, greater fulfillment?
Because it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing.
Exactly.
Maybe it is setting up that automatic savings plan that you've been putting on.
Yeah.
Maybe it's cooking at home one more night a week instead of ordering takeout. Or even just taking a few minutes each day to look at your spending, to become more aware of your habit.
Be more mindful.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Just start small, be consistent, and really celebrate that progress, right?
Yes, celebrate the small wins.
Because it's a
journey. It's not a race. It's a journey.
Exactly. Well, on that note, I think that's our deep dive. So until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep those frugal habits rolling.
Absolutely. Take care.